I want to thank you guys for joining us for this panel. I do want this to be a discussion that is real, that is open, that is honest, and really just discusses everything that is happening in the Black community and what Black people experience here in America. So I'll start with asking this question, and we could sort of go around and each of you can answer it. What does it mean to be Black in America right now, Mr. Nolan?
Right now, to live by a different set of rules sometimes, having to endure things that should not necessarily, be a way that we should have to always walk out of our house to live. It's a lot of inequality, sadness, but also there's a great strength in us to overcome those things and try and climb to where we should be, in a place that we shouldn't have to climb, but that's how it is right now being Black in America.
Reverend Clark?
It's striving to remain visible. We had gained some visibility, but everything is being pushed back, and they're tending to want to make us invisible again, not only invisible, but to not let us use our voice. We have demonstrated, we have marched, we have picketed, we have sat in, and to gain a place at the table, and they're constantly removing the chair so that we won't have a seat.
Wow, that's powerful. Kason, give me your take.
Yeah, so what it means to be Black in America at this present time, especially if you want to be specific and go from, our teenage, boys and girls, especially our teenage men, from being 13 years old, a handsome boy, to, turning into a threat, right? Whether it's because of, what they choose to wear, or if it's, them just being their natural selves, or wearing a hoodie and they look, suspicious. We can never just seem to fit the description of belonging in this country. And we know that the sad reality is we have to prove our existence to this country and America time and time again. And to know that we are not exempt of becoming a target, becoming the next statistic, that should have us all enraged, and that should have us all on pins and needles. And for that very reason, that's why I've always said we have that moral obligation to finish our ancestors' unfinished business by carrying that torch and to ensuring that we do matter, right? But in order for us to matter, we have to literally abolish those systems that are in place that were created to seek to destroy us as human beings.
A lot to unpack there. I'm going to go back to a lot of the points that you made just now, but we want to get to Shavonna and see what she thinks about being Black in America right now. So Shavonna, what do you think?
To be Black in America is no different than my great-grandmother's experience, my grandmother's experience. Is to be absolutely sick and tired and fed up. Political parties don't care about us. The system is designed to oppress us. We live in poverty. There's absolute inequity. And the ironic thing is we hold so much power. As we're on the heels of an inauguration and they give us placeholders and symbolic things instead of real policy changes that we see with other marginalized groups, Black people have had enough. I think that the time of hurry up and wait is gone. These tokens of equity are gone. And I think that we're standing up and fighting back, as you see from the number of gun ownership, as you see for the number of women running for public office. We are no longer going to stand by and sing and demonstrate. As much as I love to protest and shut down highways and bridges, we need legislation. We need equity. We need money in this country. Let's start talking about reparations first to mend the repairs, and we can go from there.
That was beautiful. So what I want to do now is sort of let you guys take over the conversation. I just wanted that to be, an introduction of sorts. But I'll ask one question, and then you guys can just chime in when you feel you'd like to do so, and sort of carry the conversation from there. Of course, I want you guys to be respectful of each other and not talk over each other or anything like that. But I think you all have powerful voices, powerful perspectives, and so I just want to hear what you have to say. So, Kaysan, you said something about proving our existence. Do you also feel as though, you know, it's a matter of proving our worth? And how do you do that if not by protesting and picketing anymore?
I mean, I have to echo the same sentiments that Shavonda has made. You know, it's literally ensuring that we elect people, not just those who are. We need, of course, we need more to elect more women and men in our local governments and our state governments and federal government. However, we need leaders right now who is going to be a Black voice, who understands our pain and our struggles, and understand that yes, we are tired of being sick and tired, but what exactly that we really need? And like Shalana stated, reparations would be a great start to mend that, right? If we are going to continue to accept these token gestures and these symbolic gestures, that's not going to get us anywhere. That is just like if we're delivering reform approaches. And we know, just as we're seeing right now and have seen this entire summer, that reform approaches do not get us anywhere. As a matter of fact, it continues to get us with America having their knees on our necks. It continues to get us, you know, when law enforcement officers who do not have warrants or justifiable causes, probable causes, at that, storm into your bedroom 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, knowing that you are someone who is not guilty, right? But will gun you down. And we know the sad reality right now is that Black men and Black women right now, this very second, is being gunned down by the hands of the police in this country. So many are going unseen and unheard of. But what exactly are we doing about it? We have wrote letters, we've marched, we've cried, we've sang, we shall overcome. But we are literally so tired. And we've seen politicians this entire summer saying, oh, well, we pledged not to defund the police. We already seen the sad reality just recently at the Capitol that police have restraint, but we've seen the sad reality that they choose and pick and choose who to apply the restraint on. And that's a problem.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm in agreement with you as a police officer, because I lived the life, and I see the disparities that go on, and I see the things that our folk have issues with that happen with police. Unfortunately, they don't. Not a lot of them. There's a great deal of police that want to understand, but there's a great deal of police that want to stay blind to how that culture started years ago. They don't want to acknowledge that the way that police were started were to almost like rally up Black folks. To try and control people back then when it started. And that's how it continues to be in many neighborhoods where police go out to find people of color sometimes, and they try and, with the simplest of crimes or the simplest of violations of laws, they want to be heavy on them a lot, instead of just trying to understand and or, look at the concrete issue that might be going on with the individual before they decide to put handcuffs on them. And
I'm sorry, I just wanted to touch on, because I want to be full transparency for the people watching it. So when we say that the history of policing is racist, it came under the Fugitive Slave Act, where they allowed white men to become marshals, to rape, maim, and murder Black people and send them back to their plantations, whether dead or alive. Like they were the official bounty hunters. Until this day, they are still the enforcers of white supremacy. Because we know that the laws in this country are not designed for us. And to keep us in line and in place, and to keep us in that subservient position, that's what the call is for law enforcement. And I understand, I've spoken to people, I am an open-minded person. I like to understand both sides of a story. That they were going to change their community, they were going to serve, they were going to stop crime, but you can't repair or fix a broken system. The culture of policing is to arrest Black and brown men at a much alarming rate. And we see it in their everyday practices, most recently from the protests that happened and the uprising, the revolution that happened after George Floyd, as we move on to the terrorist attack in America that happened on January 6th. So everything that people who do what I do, civil rights rights leaders, activists, protesters, when we call out the police departments for being racist, for being white supremacists, and sticking to their very root and core and foundation of racism, I think that this is playing out in the media every week.
And I don't disagree. I I agree totally 100% with you. It's them not trying to change the system the way the system needs to be changed. They're
Right? You
sugarcoating.
can't change a broken system. There's
You
nothing
can't.
wrong with the police department. It's working exactly how
I
it
was
was
created.
supposed to. So we need to completely abolish it. Black people need to begin to police ourselves as we see in other communities that have their own
Amen.
schools, that control their own destinies, that even have down to their own ambulance care. You can't fix something that was designed to work that way. And sadly, I'm sure a lot of Black men have signed up to join law enforcement, which is crazy to me considering its racist history. But I respect their noble reasons for doing it, but it's just too many holes. This building, it needs to be demolished if you were talking about a construction, and we need to create a new way to redefine public safety. We need to realize that police are not stopping crime, that we need to defund the police and reallocate those resources so we can stop substance abuse, so we can
Yes.
stop mental health. And these are the reasons.
And I just
And if I
want
can just-
Reverend Clark to chime in a little bit because she did have something to add. Reverend Clark.
Yes, because shortly after the death of George Floyd, our mayor brought 12 members of the community and created a public safety policy review board. And the report just came out last week, and we got so much pushback from the police department. But one thing I said publicly during the Martin Luther King observant is that there is no such thing as protect and serve anymore. That's out of the window, because to hear from policemen talking about there's a jungle out there, and so they take the stance of hunters, not to protect and serve, but they hunt because they loathe us, their biases, their prejudices. And so all of that wrapped up in the culture of the way they are used to being policemen. So rather than protecting and serving, I said this publicly, and I got some pushback on it, but they're becoming hunters instead of policemen.
And let me ask you this, Reverend Clark, you actually, marched and walked and protested, during the civil rights era. So what have you seen? What changes have you seen with police officers back then, if any, and officers now in terms of how they handle the Black community?
When I was a student at South Carolina State, and I think we were the second or the third school that attempted to, we marched and for sitting and wanting to sit down, got arrested, put in cages, hit us with the fire hose, the whole 9 yards. And I don't see a great change, because and the thing that disturbs me is I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, so under Jim Crow, so I knew desegregation, I knew the hate. I know that everything was based on our mistreatment as Blacks. And here it is. By the way, I have to tell you, I am 79 and 12 years old.
God bless you. Amen.
And I'm ready not to fight with my fists, but do my community work, stand up and say, enough's enough. I have lived through this stuff long enough, and I'm tired. I don't see much change. It may be different areas. They can say what they want to say on Facebook, YouTube, whatever. They're policemen, but I don't see much change. And so that's why I'm still out there fighting.
So, Mr.
Thank you, Reverend Clark. Just thank you for fighting the good fight for us so long. If it wasn't for people like you, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And my family is from Allendale, South Carolina. So
Jim Clyburn, I know you, Jim Clyburn, well. We did everything together because we were in school together, and Jim Clyburn was our student leader and everything that we did then as students. So that's where I got some of my
your fight from.
not physically, but and then the other thing that I mentioned is rhetoric. I am sick and tired of rhetoric, the same rhetoric, like you said, telling us to wait. No, I don't know how much time I want to enjoy some. I have great grandkids. So how much longer do you want me to wait? I've waited all this time for something different to happen, and it's the same old stuff.
That's right, Reverend Clark, and no one's coming to save us but us. We are that change. So thank you for paving the way.
And I want to thank you for this gentleman here, this Representative Anthony Nolan. Being a policeman and where we are in the community, when he ran for office, his union refused to back him because he stood for the truth. He spoke truth to power. He said what needed to be said. First of all, he's a Christian man. That has nothing to do with it, some people may say. He has a heart. He's a Black man, and he spoke the truth. Not only that, he sees and he knows what goes on out there. And so I'm so grateful to him, and he's still taking the heat for being the person that he is.
Mr. Nolan.
Appreciate that, Reverend Clark. You know, it starts, of course, with the police accountability. You know, when we pushed that up in Hartford to try and start making the change in how some of the behaviors are, or some of the ways that they get away with doing some of the things that harm our communities. They didn't like it. I wasn't worried about it because I knew where I stood in Christ, and I knew what I was supposed to do. And I got the quiet treatment, still get the quiet treatment to this day. And I won't lie to you, I give the quiet treatment back because I just don't approve of some of the attitudes and behaviors that they give our community. And it's not just New London, it's throughout Connecticut. There is a lot of things that we need to change, and I'm willing to step up to the plate to be the person to get them the one to be angry with, because I know how it's supposed to be. So I'm going to continue to try and do that. I don't think the police accountability bill that we recently passed was as heavy as it should have been. There's a lot of lies and mistruths about it that still go on. And it's that rhetoric that you've seen in the White House that it jumps around Connecticut too. We're just going to keep fighting the good fight, and we're going to try and make, the changes that we need to make it better. And Shavonna, I'll be looking for some help.
I actually was up there. I think it was for, I hope I'm not pronouncing it, Mumbai. He was murdered about a year ago. He was mentally ill, and I take that right up to support him and the family. And I'm happy that you started touching on bills and laws being passed, because this is one of the most important things to me. I don't need racists to like me. I don't need you to love me. We never have to reach that moment of kumbaya. But I do believe that laws protect marginalized people. So right now, what we're pushing for at Black Lives Matter Greater New York is more legislation. That's our point. Like, protesting is 5% of what we do. We hold a protest because we want the media to pick it up truthfully, and for the people to become informed and know. Since the passing of George Floyd, and why protesting actually does work, we released about 24 pieces of legislation under the Black Act. And within the weeks shortly following the murder of George Floyd, we've had 4 of those pieces of legislation passed. Now, of course, we need more. Right now, we're pushing for the blue wall bill, meaning officers, because we can't rely on them for their moral conscience. Everyone isn't faith-based. Everyone does not have the love of the Lord and do not feel that they're a servant like the people who I'm on this panel with. What we need is to jeopardize their futures, meaning until we completely abolish policing, of course. If you falsify police reports, that's a federal crime. You need to be in jeopardy of losing that little house with that picket fence, your pension, your kids' scholarship plans, all, because right now we have to look at policing. When everyone talks about street culture, including New York City, where I'm currently at, has the largest police force probably in the world. And it has a gang culture, meaning they have a stricter no snitch policy than any organized crime thing. But once people know that, hey, if I lie for my brother in blue, if I don't do the right thing, if I actually don't do my job and do that oath, I can go to jail. My kids can go hungry. I think that's the first step in making it. Then we also need to talk about having special prosecutors come in. But people can check this out on Black Lives Matter Greater New York. But I'm just happy that Reverend Nolan touched on legislation, because that's what we need. Clearly, America does not have a moral conscience. This is the same country that came here, took the indigenous people land, even down to giving them blankets infected with smallpox. I don't think that no matter how much sage people burn or how many prayers I can offer up, I do not believe that America will change its core, but we need to be a body governed by law. We need to act as a democracy and follow the laws.
Also, with the recommendations that we made, the board that that was developed was not a policy-making board. So we went through and we made some suggestions, even to the point of having a police review board, and that is absolutely making people go bonkers, because the commission that they have now, all they can do if somebody make a complaint, they go through the system, and then it goes to the mayor for the final action or reaction. Nothing happens, and in fact, the persons who make the complaint don't even know how the case is settled.
They do that, ma'am, to pacify us. Here in New
Yes.
York, it's a civilian complaint review board. I was pushing for an elected civilian complaint review board that's governed by the people in the community. It's an elected job, so it's not padded with the mayor's friends, and it actually has real teeth. It has the power to put out a warrant, a power to affect policy. But what they do is, when they murder another one of our brothers and sisters, they give us these councils with, forgive me for saying it, with house Negroes, with people who follow and abide by the status quo, and we get nothing. I'm tired of symbolism. We need something with teeth, and we need something concrete. And I agree with you, Reverend Clark.
Right. And so we, the subcommittee that I served on, recommended that we have a police commission. That's going to open a whole can of worms, because that may have to go all the way back to the city charter. So the city attorney is looking at that, but that's what we are pressing for. Also, you talked about the blue wall. The union has a website, and they have been bullying some of the citizens, and they're lumping it under First Amendment rights. But something has to be changed. We made a recommendation that they look at that to see when it crosses the line that it becomes a crime. And so we have to use the law just like they've been using it against us.
Absolutely. And if you need me to come up there and make some noise with a team, I know Kason across the bridge, and we'll come up there and make a stink so we can put some pressure on it.
Thank you.
So let us know. We'll come.
Let me ask you guys this, and I think this is just amazing dialogue, by the way. Being that you do have an officer here on the panel with you, I think it'll be interesting to know what goes on behind that, what I have called, or I've heard other people call that blue wall of silence. You know, what is that brotherhood where officers don't want to tell on each other, or comment if they see any wrongdoing, or take that action, or report somebody else?
There's a lot of intimidation, and it's almost a voiceless intimidation. You know, when you're shunned, or when people take their time getting to a call that they know you're going to. Um, you know, you have some that are, you know, some that get bold enough to tell you that you shouldn't do it certain ways. Um, I don't run into that problem myself because I happen to be in a unique position. You know, a representative and a police officer. So I really only get the silent treatment. No one really comes to me and tells me anything because they know that I'll have a lot to say if they do. But Reverend Clark was right. You know, they use their social network to tell half truths, to try and divide the community against you. It happened to me in this last, when they didn't support me because of the police accountability bill. But they seen that the community was not listening to them. You know, I happened to win the election by like a 4-to-1 margin. Um, you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, those are it's a silent treatment, and people are scared to speak up just because they're intimidated by what goes on.
And even beyond that, though, you said that you have had your own, when we talked earlier, you said that you had your own experiences where you've been pulled over, you've been mistreated. I mean, talk about those experiences, because I think that's more so what we're talking about.
I mean, just you know, just the way that they speak to you, and the way they think that they can get over on you because they think that you don't know enough about the law in order to put them in check. You know, I have been stopped. You know, I sometimes I'm a little heavy on the gas, and you know, and they come up and they think that they can, you know, check your car just because they feel like checking your car without a reason to check your car, or they think that they could have you get out the car for a reason of just intimidating you, so you can stand out in the cold. Um, it, it it takes someone, it takes us to really educate ourselves so that people know their rights.
Anyone want to chime in?
I just think it speaks to all that everyone has been sharing and saying, and this is why we need to abolish policing, because as a whole, this culture, this intimidation, and he's not the first officers. There are tons of officers who have come forward and shared their story of being afraid. Imagine someone not showing up when you need backup because you spoke truth to power. And this is why we need to abolish policing, because clearly it doesn't work. And it's not a place fostered in truth. It's not a place for public to protect and serve. It's not a place for public service. And I think that everything that Rep. Nolan said attests to that.
Do you?
Not only that, I live in an area of town where I'm not supposed to be living, but I've been here I'm dug in. I've been here for over 30 years where I live. And, but there are two main streets that run parallel that I deliberately don't speed because I got stopped once and told that I was speeding, and I knew that I was not. And I didn't argue and I didn't talk my way out of the ticket, but I talked my way out of the ticket to let him know that I was not just visiting on this side of town. I happen to live here and I care about. So that taught me something. And so it's to the point now where the people who want to drive 30 and 35 and 40 miles on these two streets, and if they're behind me, I drive like the little old lady from Pasadena. Yeah, you want everybody else to, who don't look like me, you can speed, but then I do the speed, and then I've had people to go around me. One person almost had a head-on collision, but see, they don't know that they weren't stopped. I was.
Reverend Clark, do you get afraid when you get pulled over by the police? Are you scared?
Once, when I was coming from a church service in Norwich on Route 32, um, I saw the policeman behind me, and it was near, he finally pulled me over near Connecticut College. I love hats. I love hats all the time. I wear them in the summer and in the winter. And so I had a cap on. I love my cap. I have a color for all my outfits. And so finally he put the light on. And so naturally I pulled over and I rolled my window down. I didn't move. And his first response to me was, you had a little bit too much to drink tonight, didn't you, buddy?
Oh,
Calling me buddy. First of all, he assumed that I was a guy because
wow.
I had a cap on. And I said, no. I said, if I'm drunk, I'm just crazy anyway. I said, if I'm drunk on the Holy Spirit because I'm just coming from church. And then he said, well, I saw you going, and I know he didn't. He said, I saw you going across the line and coming back, and see, I pulled you over for your own safety. Really? All right, but I'm going to let you go this time. But do you know what? I was scared as heck. Because when he called me buddy, every hair on my body, everything, I just stiffened because I didn't know what was going to happen after that. But I did, thank you, God. I did get an opportunity to speak to him, and he said he'd let me go. But that scared the bejeebies out of me. So to answer your question, yes, ma'am, I do get scared.
Does anyone else get afraid when they get pulled over by the police?
Of course, statistically, I am not in a great position. And as much as I believe in standing up and fight back, my hands are visible. In most states, even though I am licensed to carry in 30 states, in New York states and some states, I am not. And to know that, what if they seen a picture of me? To know that I've received death threats from police officers, that I'm in their group chats. So when I'm outside at this point, I'm in a bulletproof vest. Because once Donald Trump put a target on my brother and fellow co-founders' back, I don't know, police and white militia seem to go hand in hand. So now just going out, sitting in a car, speaking at events, my life is currently in jeopardy from the amount of death threats that I've received.
Okay, Son, what about you?
I agree with Shabanda. It's really similar, especially when, those of us who speak truth to power unapologetically and we hold them fiscally and fully accountable. They meaning our politicians that are in place, our local leaders, they use these police departments as guinea pigs to retaliate back at us, try to intimidate us, to try to refrain us from speaking up, and just to make us scared, right? So when you show them that you are not afraid, and then when you educate them, although they are aware of this, they just choose not to adhere to it because this is how the system was created. When you let them know that you are A, not afraid of them, B, you are a strong Black man or woman and you're not going anywhere until change happens. This is a sad reality and a true testament of how they use these police departments to intimidate you. I remember just being in a car with a few friends about a few weeks ago. I was in a passenger side and my friend was in the driver's side. And this was just in Elizabeth, right down the road from where I reside. And two police officers who are familiar with, my face and my name, of course, was like, we got the wrong car. Kason Little was in this car. And I said, you know what? Well, I hope that you think about every other innocent young man, a young woman who dare to dream, who dare to fix from within, and you do not pull them over for ridiculous things because they just look suspicious. When my friend asked the officer what was the reason of them pulling over, it's like, oh, well, it was just a lot of suspicious stuff going on in this car, and we just wanted to make sure that you guys were not getting into trouble. Anyone who knows me or knows any of my friends that I hang out with, that trouble is not within our purview and it's not in our scope. So this is just a true testament of how the system was created. And like Shavana said, we need to abolish it from within and dismantle it completely, because it has never worked at the best interest of Black and brown people in this country, and still doesn't. Even from hearing Representative Nolan, it doesn't work for him as well, whether if he has the badge on or he has the badge off.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are you afraid as well?
I used to be. I choose not to be now because I got tired of it. So, and that's, uh, I get a lot of ignorance from people driving by the house or flashing lights in the house, or um, they just think that is something that I should be worried about, and it's actually not. Because I just got tired of it. And people say, "Oh, that doesn't happen. No, those things don't go on." And I just wait for the day uh, you know, someone decides to be a little extra stupid and come to the house because I'm not going to tolerate someone uh, trying to intimidate, injure, harass, or have a devastating effect on my family. It's gotten to a point where you have to speak up and you have to fight back. And I'm not talking about fight physically back. I'm talking if that's a need be, then be it. But I'm not looking to encourage anybody to fight anybody. Um, but you have to
Amen.
beat the system, and you have to work on changing the system to try and overcome the things that we go through. And um, so being scared, no, I'm more of a challenger now. I want to see it done right. If I'm doing something wrong, fine. If I'm
But
speeding and I deserve a ticket, I'll take the ticket. Um, but it better be done right. And there better not be any kind of hostility, because if there is, I'm gonna make a big deal about it. And I'm not saying it so people can challenge me in the street, because I knew as soon as this gets seen on TV, I'm going to be criticized again. And I'm not worried about it. And I'll say it again. I'm not scared of no people. And I refuse to be scared of them. My job is to protect and serve, and that's what I'm going to do. Um, and just to reverse a little bit from what Reverend Clark said about speeding, that is one of the biggest changes I think need to happen with some of our laws that we enforce. Because obviously, I believe it's not even a. There are times when police are just driving around town, and they're going in excess of the speed
Mm-hmm.
limit. But yet we stop the same people in our communities for doing something that we do. There's police that don't use their blinkers, but yet we're stopping somebody else for not using their blinkers. So the same thing that we're arresting people for or charging people for, the same thing needs to happen to the same police officers when they do the same thing. I've seen many videos of police in our community uh, uh, not using proper motor vehicle, driving properly in the motor vehicle, and nothing's done about it.
so let me ask you this. I know that you're saying you're not afraid, and this is my last question before I get some final thoughts. But you still have to have the talk with your kids, and I'm sure Shavana's gone through it. I'm sure Kasan's gone through it. I'm sure the Reverend has gone through it as well.
Oh yeah, my son lives right downtown, and I tell him all the time, uh, people that look like us have to put. Unfortunately, we have to check ourselves when we're driving around. We have to check ourselves when we go out on the town and want to have fun, because we have to make sure that we don't give them a reason to pull us over. And I'm not here to say all police officers are bad, but we do have a lot of police officers.
I'm here to say it.
I am too.
I'm here to say it.
And that's
They
where we
are.
can respectfully disagree to agree.
Now, are you saying it because of the job that we took on, or to explain how?
Yeah,
Because
it's entering a corrupt and broken system. This
Yes.
is like me going to work for the mafia that goes and murders people and takes advantage of people. And I'm like, hey, I'm a good one. I don't murder people, but I'm still a part of a murderous and corrupt system. I think it's kind of a crime to like sit and be a part of something. What is it, accessory or something? My brother went to law school. I didn't. So anyone who signs up for this system, who knows fully aware of its racism and how it perpetuates, how it treats Black people, the fact that you have to give your son a chat, that I have to live by a certain set of rules, going into that, knowing that, yeah, you're signing up to be bad. No matter what your intentions are, to be a part of something so corrupt and bad, that makes you bad by association.
I wholeheartedly agree, and you have to uphold to that level of not only white supremacy, but that hatred that lives within the police department. It's like you have to obey by the master's rules, and we unfortunately know the sad reality, and we can't water down this enough. We can't sugarcoat this enough. We see it right within our own faces in our own backyards. That literally, like you stated too, Rep. Nolan, this, you go through this intimidation and this retaliation from when you speak up. The system does not keep good cops. The system was not created this way to keep people in there who was going to be angelic troublemakers, who was going to speak truth to power. They will get rid of you a quick, fast, and in a hurry. And so while we know that sad reality, how will that break down to protecting people in the community? I mean, just like Shavana stated earlier, police officers have never prevented crime, at least from what I'm aware of. As a matter of fact, they escalate the crime and they make it worse, and it turns into fatalities.
So let me ask you this. Are you guys saying that Anthony is not a good cop? And what do you think of all Black officers?
That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying.
I'm saying he is not, because a good cop does not exist. It's like a unicorn. If you're a part of that system, you are bad. And I'm sure that Nolan, from what he said, Rep. Nolan, he's fighting the good fight, and he's taking a lot of heat for it. As we know, Jesus Christ was the greatest revolutionary of them all.
Absolutely.
But as long as you have that badge and you take that seal and that oath for such a corrupt and horrible and oppressive white supremacist system, I cannot call you good.
And that's unfortunately the sad reality. And that has to change. But how do we change that? It's only by
abolishing policing.
Reforming the
scratch.
approaches. Yeah, reforming does not address that, and reforming will continue to get America to have their knees on our necks, and it's going right now. So we cannot afford to continue that happening.
Anthony, when you hear that, what do you think about that?
So I mean, she has a right to feel how she wants to feel. I have mad respect for her for what she does, and Don, same with you. And like you said, I will continue to fight the fight. Unfortunately, this is the career that I chose. I chose to try and do it right. Unfortunately, there are those who put a stain on it, or that there's a system with a stain on it that, like you said, that I am part of. But I don't think I reflect that stain. I think maybe the badge does. But the person that wears the badge, I think I'm a little different than many. But I do understand what you're saying.
And just to be clear, the Black Panther Party, which our doctrines at Black Lives Matter Greater New York are very closely modeled after, they actually worked with Black cops, because we understand the treatment that Black officers, the racism that actually involves within the walls. Let's not talk about how they treat civilians. We know that there's racism that's even in there for you wanting to fight the good fight. But until, like, if you wanted to do some mutual aid in the community, things like that, yeah, but I can't stand by a system that murders and maims my people. It's like saying the overseer was a good person, or Master Tom was a real nice slave owner. He didn't work us too hard. It's just such a conflict. Those words don't really go together in the way my mind works, and the way that it works for Black people.
So this is a great discussion. We have literally 1 minute left because President Biden's going to speak. What do you want white people to take away from this entire conversation today? We have 30 seconds, go.
What I will hope for white people to take away in this conversation is, number one, understand our true struggles, right? And how you can really be of offense, be of allyship to Black people in this time, meaning not get in the way, have this be centered by strong Black women and men, and understand their pain, and then just really be there to aid of support, whether it's mentally, physically, financially, because we know that that's just what will unfortunately somewhat help bend the arc of what we're going through in this time. I want to also say thank you for having me on, and maybe continue this work.
Also see me. Don't paint me with a broad brush. See me.
Next. Shavana?
I don't really care to talk to My message is for my people, for my base. I fight for the full liberation of Black people. I waste no time trying to explain, defund the police to people who don't want to understand it, to explain my hardships as a Black person. You know what? Ask your ancestors, because they created those hardships. They probably be
Mhm.
way better at explaining it than I would. So I have no comment for white people. If you join in the fight, come out, support us. Respect Black leadership, understand what true allyship means, and Black people stand up, fight back, and we built this country for free. They're not doing us a favor, they owe us more.
That's right.